that remembering,
Yeah.
someone described it and said, remembering, putting the members and the pieces back together again.
Yeah.
And I love what you do, because that's exactly what it is. I feel like this now, and I'm always mindful of how I say it, because there are certain ailments where it's like, okay, yes, we need access to medical care and this and that and the other. But there are also some things that if we understood more about how our bodies worked, like we did half a century ago, if we understood preventative things like we did half a century ago, if we understood what the herbs did and the roots and the barks and the flowers and different things did that we had to grab because we couldn't access their medical facilities, then we could take care of ourselves better than what we're doing now when we have so much. So tell us about this grandma's hands you've been talking about for a minute.
So grandma's hands, pregnancy and postpartum herbs and nutrition in the Southern tradition, started off as a 6-week online course. Initially, I did a workshop for the Squat Fest in New Orleans, in which I did like an hour workshop showing how to make salves and infusions and talking a bit about the Southern herbs. And from that particular conference, I was just asked, well, where next are you going to go teach? And I was pregnant with my 4th child, and I was like, well, I'm not going anywhere, but I'm probably doing online. And so from then, I'm just humble and blessed that the sisters, and some folks say we don't look out for each other, but sisters came out in masses and signed up for my first Grandma's Hands online class, and it has been growing each session, solid. The folks have come out, and I get sisters that are have my same background, roots in the South. But I get sisters that's Haitian, sisters that's African. I get Latino sisters that have roots in Puerto Rico, Cuba, Mexico. I get a couple of white folks every now and then for my online and my workshops now. But my base has supported me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so I always have to shout them out. Thank you for supporting me and seeing the worth in this, because by seeing this worth, we have these soldiers out there that can go back to their own communities and share the things that we've talked about, the things that we teach. And one plant that I teach about that grows right in front of my house. So when you told me, oh, you can show some herbs, I said, let me go ahead and pick this in front of my house. And one of my older teachers, his name was Dr. Kofi Asari. He was my husband's teacher from Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
And he would stay with us when he would do his tours in the States. And so when we moved here and he seen the camphor growing, he was like, well, as an herbalist, what we say is that what grows near you is what you're going to be. And camphor is something that you can use instead of sage to boil in the house. And so my father-in-law, my husband's originally from Louisiana, so I got a Southern man who went to Southern University. His whole family went to, they SU all the way. And so his grandmother used to boil camphor when people had a cold and just let the steam hit the house, and it would kill sickness. Okay. And so in most traditions, things that kill sickness, remove worms and things like that, are also kill or take away bad spirits or what have you. And so camphor is one of those things, and this is how it looks when it's dry. Sometimes I just sit and dry it. But it also has a usage amongst the Southern Black midwives. And it's documented that when the mother had fevered breasts, you would make a infusion of this and rinse her breasts out for her. So we know fevered breast now as yes.
Yes.
And so, camphor was in the young leaves of camphor in an infusion was one of the healing traditions. A lot of things that I like to tell people is that in many of the recipes that we have that Black Southern healers use, it's not 13 different ingredients. You know what I'm saying? Some people call them simples. I often say, you know, sometimes they knew how to do so much with a little. So I tell people when we have my class, you're not going to learn 100 different herbs in a 6-week class. We have a certain amount of herbs that we talk about each week and that sometimes you see repeated. And if you master just 5 of those and know that those 5 can do 3, 4, 5 different things, yo, you got a lot more than somebody else who don't know nothing versus you just knowing 100 different names of herbs but don't know how to use it, don't know how to. And so we do in my 1-day workshop, which are an 8-hour intensive. So like this Saturday I'll be teaching in this Sunday I'll be teaching in Jacksonville, Florida. So I'm happy to be in Florida. And each time I go to a different space, I try to find out something interesting about the Black Southern midwives in that area. So I have another herb and plant that I'll be talking about the usage of mullein, or mullein, I say mullein leaves from Black midwives in Florida. And so I'm excited to share it with them, the usage of mullein and from Black midwives there. And so that's an 8-hour class. It's kind of condensed. I call it intensive because it's almost like my 6-week class or steroids, and then you kind of keep it in an 8-hour span. You can't go in depth with it the way we do for a 6-week class, but you're there, you can ask me questions, and we're getting up and we're making infusions, we're making salves, and we make our lunch. We have a soul food lunch. And so, you know, I make stuff like hot water cornbread, greens. Usually I make like a peanut sauce. As a shout out to West Africa and our people on the Southeast, and peanuts and things like that. And then, so we really get into a lot of what we're talking about right now is the way I do my class. I tell people all the time, this is not just an herbal class. It's an ethnobotany course, and that you have to get into the understanding of the culture and then understand how the culture uses an herb. Because the way one people may use a plant is not the same way another people might use a plant. Like for instance, we all talk about nowadays, oh, you want to strengthen the uterus, you want a tonic for pregnancy, red raspberry leaf, or the natives use red raspberry leaf. Well, which tribe used red raspberry leaf? Because at a certain time that didn't grow everywhere. Exactly. So what people used it, and we do ourselves a disservice when we share these things, because the Houma Indians in South Louisiana did not use red raspberry leaf as a tonic. They used a plant called broomgrass as a tea, and that tradition also passed on to the Blacks that lived near them. And so they would pick that. Nowadays, unfortunately, they use that as hay, you know, for the horses. Now they just pack it and use it as hay. So I've been having a hard time like finding somebody to pinpoint it to me and just take it out before they start bundling it up and doing whatever to it. But yeah, so it wasn't red raspberry leaf down here, it was broomgrass. And so that type of nuance, we want to pinpoint those things. And there's nothing wrong with using red raspberry leaf, but what I want people to do too, especially in this capitalistic society, is it seems that once we find out a certain plant or something gets touted as it does this, we just want to buy all of it up. And we mess up systems when we do that. Every culture did a certain thing. And that way, guess what? It wasn't getting depleted all over the world. You know what I'm saying? We all did use sage. We all did use Palo Santo. You know what I'm saying? So that way you're not messing up the trees from, you know, across the water, because you just like the smell. You had your own tradition that you paid respect to. And so I tell people about bay leaf and how you can burn bay leaf, or you use bay leaf tea to cleanse you out. You know, the history of using things like turpentine and all that type of stuff, castor oil, you
My
know.
daddy told, listen, my daddy told me about turpentine, and I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
turpentine? Did what?
Uh-huh.
On wounds and stuff. Just,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
it worked.
Oh, yeah. And then just this past summer, I grew cotton. And I didn't, and I put it down kind of late. So there's the little bulb.
Oh my goodness.
And I put it down kind of late. It broke because I had it sitting there. So one plant survived, and this is a thin root, cotton root. And so, of course, it would be probably thicker and stronger had it gotten in full bloom by itself. But I planted it late, and this is the only one that had survived. And so it was very important for me to grow it because my roots maternally are Leland and Clarksdale, Mississippi. My mother was the first of my grandmother's children to be born in a hospital and to be born up north. And so I always grew up hearing about how my grandmother had my mother's two older brothers in her home and, on the couch. Now, it wasn't until I had my second child, my mother was passed on then, I had my first home birth, and I was talking to my uncle, who's my mother's oldest brother, and he said, "Oh, you having your baby like back in the old days." He said, "Cause Mama Ida caught me and your other uncle." And I said, "Hold up."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, I know y'all was born at home. I didn't know who called. I always knew the story that my two older uncles were born at home in Mississippi." And he was like, I said, "Your grandmother?" He said, "No, my great grandmother, Mama Ida, she was a midwife." And I said, he was like, "She was a midwife. She caught babies." And he was like, "Then my grandmother, his grandmother, Willie Mae, she picked cotton. She was a sharecropper. She picked cotton." So my Ida Mae and to Willie Mae, I give thanks for this. It's not a plant that I'm not scared of this plant. This is a plant we grew. We didn't just grow cotton once we got to America. We already knew how to grow cotton. That's why they brought us here. We
Yeah.
already knew how to grow rice. That's why they brought us here.
That's why they brought us.
We knew how to grow sugarcane. That's why they brought us here. We were agriculturalists. We built things. They they brought people who they knew could do the work. They wasn't no on the job training other but the little babies. They put us to work knowing we could do it. And so this is cotton. It is the usage of cotton, from the cotton flower to the cotton seeds, and the cotton root has medicinal value.
Really?
People have talked about cotton root, the relationship between cotton root and black hawk root, and cotton root being chewed and also used as a tea to prevent pregnancy, or to, as they would say, listed, bring on the blood, and for women's issues, and, to prevent pregnancy. And so it was often used. A lot of women did not want to be bringing in no more children on that plantation. Did not want to be bringing in the master's children on the plantation. And this was, whatever we personally feel about it,
Say it.
was knowledge, as a matter of fact, this is knowledge that has always been. And when we talk about herbalists and herbs and plants, there's herbs and plants that heal, there's herbs and plants that kill. Some plants do both. And they've always been scared of our knowledge of plants. And this is documented as well.
It's what you said was important, because it is regardless of what your personal convictions are. It is important to know that there were a lot of things going on plantations where the women were using herbs to maintain some type of autonomy and control over their bodies. and you don't have to agree with it.
Right.
You don't have to any of that in this current culture or anything else. But it's important to know that was a part of our history as well.
And it's just an actual fact, or we all would be looking like Mariah Carey. You know what I'm saying? It's just an actual fact. You know what I'm saying? And,
because that woman knew. I remember my great aunt telling me how, now all of my family and stuff, neither one of my grandmothers were educated beyond, at most, no, my grandmother on my father's side, she was not literate, but she knew her money, however she did that. And she was one of those that could read the Bible, however that worked out. But when my great aunt was telling me about my grandmother, my mother's side, my mother's mom, and she was talking about, she had a lot of daughters. I forget how many daughters she had, but she knew their cycles. She knew when you were supposed. She knew. She knew. I didn't see they used a rag or whatever. I didn't see. I didn't. So right now, many folks around guessing like, oh, I don't know. Did the cycle come? I don't know. Well, even that is fairly modern for us. You knew.
We do. And I won't say my mom was the most forward thinking person, but when I started to get my period, she did tell me to document. She was like, you need to document, you need to mark it.
Yeah.
Mark when you get your period, and so you get to know whatever pattern it is that you have your cycle. When I read the book Listen to Me Good, about the Alabama midwife and Miss Margaret. I can't think of her last name.
Oh, not Smith, not her. It's not. Okay, go ahead.
No, I can't. I can't think of the last name.
It's either C or S, and I can't remember which one. But go ahead.
And she has a part in the book where she talks about, and this has been the only name that I've heard a little phrase for a woman getting her period or a young girl getting her period. And she's talked about the woman, the young girl got her flowers now. So now she didn't get her flowers. Talking about her period.
And see, for us, that's the equivalent of all these things we think are so wonderful about other languages and everything. That's the equivalent.
And I was like, oh, that's the jewel right there. Just those type of things. And we not want to get this knowledge. When people ask me, well, how do you learn all of these things? Well, one, I used to ear hustle as a child. Two, this was some of the things I always was around older women, and so you would hear certain conversations and certain things they would just tell you. But I also listen and have good conversations with older people, and I shut
up. I tell people.
So read, and I sometimes I gotta buy journals to read certain things because they don't want us to get all this information. So I have to give money out to buy a journal and get an article and get all that other stuff. But the culture is a living culture. It's not a dead culture. We don't have a dead language or anything like that. You sit down, talk to folks, start asking people questions, and don't use phrases that our folks have an aversion to words like hoodoo and voodoo and things like that. So even though you might come from a space where you claiming those words as your own, witch, things like that, that's fine if you claim those words as your own. But when you get to wanting to get that knowledge from that 80-year-old auntie and this, that, and other, just keep that in your back pocket for a minute, because they have a habit of just shutting down.
Exactly.
And not telling you nothing. And our people got a habit of whispering stuff. It could just be you might be sitting in their kitchen and they whispering in their own house. You
exactly.
know what I'm saying? With this knowledge. So we have to come humbly and ask open-ended questions. Oh, what y'all used to do if somebody got sick, or it draws all type of conversation when you truly have conversation and you share with folks. And that's what we missing. We got a generational gap that we not learning from our people, and it's there.
I actually, part of my Sankofa for Birth Ambassador workshops is to speak to the elders, and they have to go find 3 that are a certain age and before and talk to the elders. They ask them certain questions. And just like you said, I have to say that this is how you go to them.
Right.
You know, you there's a reason why the elders don't talk. You understand?
Yeah.
There's a reason why. Because it used to be that they were some of the most valuable people in our communities. Because they always were there to remind us of who we were. They're teaching our children. If I'm here, then my parents are teaching my children while I'm working and doing. They're telling them, this is who you are. This is what our history is. And that has been devalued over these years. We've acclimated and assimilated into a different way of doing things.
Yes.
And it is part of the reason why we see our culture becoming what it is. It's important that we ask, that we talk to the elders, and that we sit humbly and listen. You don't have to agree with everything they're saying.
Exactly. Some things they tell me, and I go, okay. That's together. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. Okay. And you sit back and you chill. You know what I'm saying? You take the best and leave the rest. But at least you got the conversation going, and you can say, oh, you know, I got it from this mouth of a person versus regurgitated stuff on a blog that gets passed around 500 million times, and you can't find nobody in real life that bear witness to it. You know what I'm saying? And so
I tell people all the time, I say, I don't know, my great aunt told me this. You know, when she remembers, for example, she's 90, and she would say stuff. She let me record her once, but I was laughing. She said, yeah, they took those white women down there to the hospital and taught them how to take care of babies. Yeah. I said, huh? She said, yeah, they didn't know how to do it before. She said, but they took them down there and they taught them how to take care of babies. And they paid them good, too. Paid them a whole quarter. Paid them for it. Paid them, this much a day. And then they gave them $1. You know, she was like, she's like, but I heard that. So no one can take that from me. You understand? No one can tell me that a person that lived during that time, that saw the shift from babies, all of her babies born by a midwife, that saw that shift, and that saw when all of a sudden now you can't take that from me.
People think it's so long ago. My father-in-law remembers when he's from New Orleans, like they didn't want black folk downtown. You know, like he would have to jump on the trolley, and he said, you know, they would pass the black people up, he would jump on the trolley on the back, you know what I'm saying? And the kids, you know, as a young child and things like that. It's people living who remember not being able to sit at the front of the bus.
My dad tells me when he was coming back he was in the military, he said they would drive. I think I forgot where he was coming from, but they're coming. And when they hit a certain state, I forget which one it was, maybe Maryland, because that was a border state, they would stop the bus. Before Maryland, you could sit where you wanted to on the bus. But once you got to Maryland, they stopped the bus and said, you know, all you Negroes, you colored folks, you need to get to the back of the bus, because that's in his lifetime.
Right.
So all of these things that we want it to be like, oh, you act as if all of these atrocities happen to you, or no. There's a lot that if we speak to the elders, they will tell us our history and help us be grounded, and we won't just have to look at whatever, documentary has been put together by someone who might not have our best interest at mind anyway.
It's just like, it was interesting, when folks talk about vaginal steaming. And we steam down here. It ain't no fancy word for it. It was just like it was a certain bath. I'm so blessed to be learning under a very good midwife Charlotte Shiloh. She's a CPM, and she's originally from this area in Louisiana. And she was like, oh, y'all call that the yawning steam? She said, okay, we didn't call it that, but she was telling me, she went on to tell me on how with her children, how they would, have the little bath outside, and it was either a low bath that you sat in just to hit your vaginal area, or it was like a pot, and it was called like a guinea pot, like it was a Dutch oven. So the word guinea was just the label, the name of the Dutch oven.
Yeah.
And they would have the water to boil and steam, and you either squatted down on it or you got on your knees, and they would put the towel or the blanket, the sheet over you in your head, so the steam would come all down here. Now she living and she teaching me, and she know this. Then she said another thing is that a lot of the older women in the church, they would teach, the mothers of the church would teach the young girls. So remember, at one time, you didn't just see certain people at church. At one time, all of these people was your auntie and this, that, and the other, even if they wasn't your blood auntie and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So they was telling you how to change your pad, how to, you know what I'm saying, how to dress properly, along with everything. It was part of the culture. So don't be, you know, and I dealt with this, everybody is of different faith and everything now, but we have to understand historically what the Black church held was a place of culture, not just religion. This was a place so we could be human. You know,
exactly. And it has transformed in a lot of ways to a lot of different things. But I still remember, you know, the aunties by blood and by bond or whatever that, you know, gathered you in the room. Going to talk, because I grew up with all girls. Gathered you in the room, you know, was telling you about your body, telling you, you know, how to, you know, be.
Right yourself, you know.
How to take care of yourself, telling you, you know, how you needed to be mindful around boys. Like, just be careful now, because, you know, and they were Southern, you know, so sometimes, you know, most of the time their language isn't what people would
yes,
think was valuable now, but it was valuable, you know.
Exactly.
You know, so I want to make sure I love having questions just so I can know I can ask them if I want. Girl, you came out of the gate blasting, and I was here for it, honey. I was like, yes. But I want to make sure to ask you a couple of things. So you mentioned your family member, great, I forget which one, that was a midwife. Is that what provoked you to go towards birth, or what was your inspiration, your motivation for even before the grandma's hands and all of those things?
I had a calling before I even had my first child, before I even met my husband. I was just surfing the internet one time, and you know, back then you could surf, click a link, and take you to nothing. And I just fell upon the ICTC page, which is the International Center of Traditional Childbearing. And their first website had so many links of articles and information. And I literally stayed up to 2 or 3 in the morning just reading all this stuff, like, and feeling some type of soul tie to it. Like, I have to be doing this work. And I had been, I was like a teacher's aide, you know, working with our IEP students. So and that's what I was doing at the time. But I felt like this tied to that work. And I remember emailing Shafia, you know, I didn't know nothing about, you know, how to get into midwifery school. Like, oh, I'm drawn to this, I want to be a midwife. And she was saying, you need to read these books, this, that, other. It wasn't until almost 5, 6 years later that I had 2 children and I ended up taking her class. But I had already like mapped out, okay, I'm gonna have a midwife, I'm gonna do this, that, and the third. I had told my mom about it, and my mama didn't blink an eye, because I already had known that with my baby brother, who was the youngest, my mother had a midwife. She had all of us in the hospital, but she had all of us vaginally, and she had a midwife with my younger brother. And also, when I was pregnant with my first child, she told me not to get no epidural. She was very urgent about it. She said, don't let them shoot you with nothing. And I said, well, you know why? I didn't plan on it anyway. She said, because I got an epidural with you and it didn't help. And since then, my back ain't never been the same. And so that was her, you know, she ain't have to go spit me no stats or nothing like that. She was just like, it didn't help, and my back ain't never recovered. And so she said she never had another epidural after she had me, but that, you know, not to do it. So these were conversations that I was having. So I knew in like 2003, 2004 that I wanted to eventually become a midwife. And so it wasn't until after I had my second child that I found out that my great grandmother was a midwife. And I was just like sat down like, because if you know anything about original peoples and traditions, you know that things are passed down in family. You might have a family of weavers, a family of herbalists.
Exactly.
You know,
like a clan. It's like each one create, like they would say a clan maybe
right.
in other, you know, indigenous people, but ours is the same way. You have these that do this. This is what
right. They're farmers, or you know, these were the ones who fixed shoes or had the restaurants and cooked. You know, these were the ones that owned the funeral homes, or you know, all of that. And so for me to hear that I've been drawn to this thing, and I had never known that on my maternal line, my great grandmother was a midwife, and she was the midwife for a certain period of time in Washington County, Mississippi. So that is what drew me to it. I just had a soul tied to the information where I was just like, okay, this is natural, this is normal. I want to help women do this, you know, and eventually I'm going to get trained to do it. So that was just my thing. And then knowing that I had a family member that was a midwife just was like solidifying, like, okay, I got to.
That's amazing, because I mean, truthfully, I fell upon Shafir Monroe in the same way, except it was a video. A 6-part video. I had just finished my doctorate and literally had just submitted my final dissertation for review. Was bored to death already. Could not figure out what am I going to do now that I don't have to focus on research. And I just started vegging out on YouTube. I have no idea why birth would come up or why she came up or anything. But she was dressed in this purple. And she was presenting. It was a 6-part thing before you could, you know, this is before you could like make 15, 20-minute videos easily.
Right,
on YouTube, you could only do 10-minute segments. And I saw her, and she had ICTC had a training coming up in 3 weeks. Girl, I felt I was listening to her, and here I am, this girl from the South who had never pieced any of it together, had just never done it. And she pieced it together for me. She pieced it together, and made it like, I was like, oh. And so I love that. You know, I'm honestly still looking, I'm like, why would I go earn a doctorate and everything and then say, okay, now I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do, you know. But I don't know who that person is in my family. I keep asking. I don't know. And so perhaps it's somebody further back and they're just reaching, you know, forward to me or whatever. But when you look at the work that you're doing through Grandma's Hands, when you look at the work that you're doing as an herbalist, you know, it seems like you kind of just fell in this space. It seems almost like very similar to me, like this is just where I am. But when you see that, you know, what contributions do you see it making to birth culture as a whole, and specifically Black women? How do you see, what solutions, how do you see it solving a problem? Because you know, we are talking, you know, people are talking a lot about maternal mortality rates. People are talking a lot about different things. Where does this understanding of herbs and things fit into the narrative and to the picture for you? What kind of problems does it solve?
It allows us to take ownership of our healing, and that we cannot always give our power to the doctors. The doctors can't do everything. Okay, even the ones that's doing right can't do everything. So we talk about the postpartum period.
Yes.
And this postpartum period being so special, and this postpartum period being a lot of times where our mothers is dying. If they're not in the hospital room, because at the time when they're dying in that hospital, that's on them.
That's on them.
But when they're at home, we have to get as much of our community educated on what's normal, what's abnormal, so we can have a community model of care to be able to say, sister, this is what we can do, that whether it's an herb, whether it's me just getting you off your feet. I can tell when a woman has been doing too much because she bleeding too much after the baby, not just postpartum hemorrhage, but her lochia is too dark, too bright, you know, almost like she just had a baby.
It's too fresh. It's too fresh. It's not, it's just too fresh.
So you're not allowing your body to heal. What if everybody in the community knows that? So when she mentions it to somebody, somebody says, well, sit down, let us clean, let me grab you some tea, let me grab you an old remedy for bringing out the blood clots. Our midwives knew that them clots had to come out.
Exactly.
So what they would put in teas and stuff, or these warming things, clove, ginger, cinnamon, you know, a little splash of whiskey, okay? These were these teas that to help them, they would say bring out the bruised blood, okay? And have that mama sit down and drink tea. But we have to have these knowledge of these little things. These ain't no heavy, like I ain't saying nothing spooky, right? Clove, ginger,
no,
cinnamon.
Yeah, ain't that spooky.
We all can get that, right? Even Family Dollar got that, huh? You ain't got to go to Whole Foods to get it, right? Okay. So by taking ownership of our bodies, but also taking ownership that this is my sister, this is my aunt, this is my community, this is my village, that if this couple can't get through this time of postpartum, generations from now, we're going to be suffering because we didn't help this couple heal. We didn't help them understand how to work with their baby. We didn't understand these things. So you mentioned the idea of if we knew more about our health, that outside of emergencies, a lot of things we could do ourselves, that you're not running in and out the house for little things. In the African American tradition, in the Black American tradition, after you have the baby, the mama is not supposed to be outside and that baby is not supposed to be outside. So we can't keep referring them to people to see, whether it's chiropractors, massage therapists, lactation counselors, that's going to take mama out the house. We have to make sure that we have people who are trained in all of those things that can make home visits, or they can do some rub downs. It used to be a woman in the community that stretched the babies. It used to be a person that, even whether your sister, your husband, whoever, your mama, who knew how to massage you. We can't say massage you, we ain't got a massage therapist. We'll give you a rub down.
Rub down.
Whatever. You know what I'm saying? So what we can do, we ain't even doing that.
Listen here.
What this class does is show you, look at what you can do, so we can save some people, and then we can refer them to their provider, whoever's going to see them in 6 weeks or whatever
that is. That's just the theme of my life. I really try to work hard to not discourage people from being the doula if they want to. Many of them, and you know this if you've trained as a doula and you know whatever, I think that people often look at the doula profession as something that will be lucrative to them. And they look at it as something that will be lucrative with Black women. And I try to tell them, you see, you're laughing because you know I'm right and you know where I'm going. Baby, that's not going to happen. I believe that there's something in Black women that knows that we did not expend a lot of money on things like the basic care and, you know, attention afterwards. I think there's something that just said, wait a minute. Wait. So you're saying I'm going to pay this amount for what? Now, I'm not discouraging that. I'm not saying that if you want a postpartum doula, or if you want to whatever, I have those services if that's what you want to pay for. However, those that want to be doulas and feel like they'll be able to leave whatever other job they have strictly off of working with Black women strictly. I haven't seen it yet. I see people that get discouraged very, very easily because of that. And I think that we need to, like you said, there's some revamping, like you're saying, okay, we're like, oh, refer to a chiropractor, refer to this. We're following some of the things that we've doula as a thing is only 30, 40 years old, okay? And so it's okay. It's a thing. But the care that we in the African American tradition, and if you want to go back over the water and go anywhere else where Africans went or live, that care was always a part of our culture.
And you know, we, not to cut you off,
no, that's fine.
We can't have it both ways. At one point, I'll see somebody post a picture of someone who helped serve 100, 300 moms and caught babies, but never took a dime. Oh, she was a blessing. This, that, and the third. And then in the next breath, say you want to know why don't nobody want to pay you. What's your vision? One. Now, I'm not saying, and here's my thing. Well, what I've been doing, sisters have been coming through, registering for my classes and things like that, but it's not just birth. It's
exactly
that I'm giving. And so when you look at the documentation, our midwives did not just midwife until they got to a certain age. They would pick pecans, they were sharecropping, they did domestic work, maybe they were seamstresses. They had other things that they did. And if they got that call that night from the elder midwife to come follow them and come help them with that, then they also did midwifery work. Because even by the time the public health unit started paying our traditional midwives, they still had to do other things unless they were older and could not do other things. So what I say and I encourage, and I've even told my sisters, I said, one of our traditions of Black birthing traditions is that our hair got to be did before that baby come out. You're not supposed to be sitting there with your baby not supposed to come out and see the amount of hair all over their head. Some of y'all know how to braid. Why ain't it on your list of the services that you do? Some of you know how to braid. Now, they can go to anybody to get their hair braided, but if you already provide the services, you should be promoting your hair braid. I do get ready to have a baby. I do new mama braiding special. Whatever you want to market yourself and do it. And if you cold with it, so they ain't got to deal with that hair for the next 6 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks or what have you. You know, that was one of the reasons you got your hair braided. You did put up so they wouldn't get matted up.
Been there.
Go out and do nothing to it. If you had to washed and braided your hair beforehand, because during them 6 weeks you wasn't supposed to wash it. Okay.
Girl, you better teach. You better teach now.
So am I discouraging people from getting into the work? No, because we need you to do the work. But as you are seeing, even in the states that are saying, oh, Medicaid is going to pay you for X, Y, and Z, they not paying you. They not paying you
a living wage.
$50,000, $60,000 a year, $70,000 a year. They are not. So what you have to do is put your big girl panties on. Learn from our brothers and sisters. Some of y'all want to disconnect yourself to, the brothers and sisters that sell penny candy and snowballs and all of that stuff, and they got no business license, but they making sure, you know what I'm saying, they power is on and they want to be okay and all of that other stuff. What are some ways in which you can make money and still do this work if this is your passion?
Yes.
And don't follow everybody else's way of doing the work. Maybe you can just be a postpartum doula right now because you need to do your 9 to 5. That is okay. Don't let nobody belittle you talking about your work is a hobby or whatever. you do what you can do. The community, if you do your work well, the community is going to put upon you that you work with women and pregnant women. And when you no longer do that 9 to 5, they are going to come to you. Okay? So don't stress over that.
You would have established a relationship with the community. And they will know you as that person. And I just really think that that's one of the things that's really important for us as Black people. As well, I'll speak just specifically to Black women in this whole birth thing. And I get so many messages. I want to be a doula. Oh, I found out that Black women are dying and I want to be a doula. And many of them come in a space, and it's the reason why I do Sankofa Birth Ambassadors. They come in and they are gung-ho, like we're going to go and in some ways it's like we're going to go save our own women, which I love because I'm all about healing yourself, saving yourself. And we do that for ourselves. At the same time, we have to know our historical context. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Historically speaking, Black women are not accustomed to strangers keeping their children.
Yes.
Historically speaking, Black women are not accustomed to strangers cleaning their houses. Historically speaking, Black women are not accustomed to strange people coming in to cook their food.
In their kitchen.
And I've had to tell people, you can't just walk in a Black woman's house tomorrow, I'm here to help you, girl. And
it's a way we gotta communicate. And how can I say this? But I have to make it plain.
But you got to make it plain, sis.
I have to make it plain. If you are Black, but did not grow up around Black people, did not surround yourself around Black people, and now you want to do work with Black people, you have to recognize that within yourself and get an understanding. That's why I say some of us need cultural competency ourselves.
Exactly.
That's not to knock it, because as everybody say, we're not a monolith.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody have different ways of what is common.
Exactly.
Whether a mom lives in the projects or whether she has works for a big name company. It's some of those specifics you just said about not knowing somebody. Because even if she drops her child off at child care, she knows the child care at this point, that she's paying for the child care. So this idea that something is supposed to be happening personal to her, but she has that person doing it that doesn't go to her church, that her mama don't know, don't go to her mosque, she didn't go to school with, don't know her daddy and them. You know what I'm saying? She got to wrap her mind around it. So this old posted, we don't want to invest in and you have that idea, they'll never invest.
And that's why, we have, like you said, some of us need cultural competency in our own. Let's move forward with what we're doing. But we have a context to consider. And that's what I love about what you just said. It's important. I tell people, do not assume. Don't make, and then there's sometimes that someone say, how do you approach there's a Black woman, I feel like I want to help her with something, or I see that she's whatever. And sometimes there've been times when I was about to just publicly say what to do. And then I would say, sis, let me connect with you offline. Because what you don't want to do is have people think, oh, I follow step 1, step 2, and step 3, and then the Black woman will accept me. Because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, okay, sis, remember this now. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Is she so and so and so? Okay. Oh, do this, try this. Try this.
And how do they see you? The first week of my class, and then within the first hour of my workshop, I talk about how that midwife is seen amongst the community. Nowadays, if people want to take my classes, when I hear somebody, their first question they ask me is, do they get a certification? I usually think, this is probably not the class for you. I get the certification of completion, but I can't make you a herbalist. I can't make you the community will say who you are. That's where the proof is in the pudding at. Now, that don't mean get your trainings and everything. Get your trainings. No, so you're ready. As they say, be so ready. You always be ready.
Exactly.
Be ready for when the folk come and ask you. But this idea that you just gonna hang your shingle out and then everybody's gonna run to you, no. Because some people feel that they're doing fine without the knowledge that you possess. Some people think they're doing fine. So we gotta make sure we're not coming in as missionaries or like saviors
in our own community.
I'm reminding my people, I'm not teaching them because they know this. A lot of stuff they know. Because when you say, I've spoken to churches and say, well, you know that woman ain't supposed to be out in 6 weeks. They're like, yeah, that's right. Even the men, that's right. That's right. Then why you letting them?
It's so everything you're saying is so good and so true. It is so I get it, but I'm not going to be a missionary to my own community. I am only helping you remember. That's my job. Any assignment that I give with Sankofa Birth Ambassadors is to help you remember. It's to help you start connecting whatever piece you ended up with. Because like you said, we all got these little pieces. Our clan, our piece was this. Oh, I remember that piece.
Right.
But there are things that we already know. We just have to be reminded of them. And that is so important. Okay, so if you, along those lines, if you had a word of advice, because like I told you before, I consider this to be not a revolution. I consider it to be a renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
After some horrible things were done to get rid of all these wonderful midwives who had been working to sustain us, like your great-great-grandmother and all of the rest of them who had done work, I consider this to be a rebirth.
Yes.
And that the women that are coming in now, you know, there are those beautiful elder midwives that kind of held it down like through the 80s and the 90s and things like that. But that now there's a resurgence. And with all the attention being on maternal mortality, there's a resurgence. What would you say? You know, here you are, grandma's hands and herbalism and teaching about the herbs and the basics of how we can, and as you said, take ownership for ourselves. What would you say to someone that was saying, okay, I want to get involved in birth. I feel like I feel this call, you know, now, you know, almost 15, 20 years after you, however long after you first felt the call yourself. What would you say to them? What would you say to them as they become a part of this Black birth renaissance?
Reclaim what is yours. Reclaim it. You've got the feeling and the calling to reclaim it. Reclaim it. Get your trainings. Be realistic, okay, about what the situation is outside of the newspaper and the grant talk. And I have a nonprofit as well. It's called Community Birth Companion here in Opelousas, Louisiana, that works to decrease infant and maternal mortality rates.
Say it again. What's the name of it again?
Community Birth Companion. And the website is communitybirthcompanion.org. And we are a 501c3. It's different ways in which you can help the community. But what I'm going to tell you is we have to stop these scare tactics. What's going on right now with these articles, those same rates have been like this 10 years ago when I was looking up in 2003, 2004, these high rates of infant and maternal mortality. Right now, there's been some key people that have put it in the spotlight, but we have been working on this for years. So now you on it, you know about it. Educate yourself on what's going on. Educate yourself on what role you want to play in it. You might take a doula training and then have a first couple of clients and say you don't want to be a doula. Well, that's fine. What else can you do to add on or to help or to support? Maybe you can host community baby showers in your town once or twice a year. Maybe you can host talks in which mamas come together and talk about pregnancy. It's all different ways in which the community can add on. You can't just have one person. The situation is too dire to think that it's only one thing that's going to help. It can't just be doulas. It can't just be midwives. The community, the village itself has to reclaim what is theirs. And we need it every block, every community, every family reunion you go to. You need to ask, who was the midwives? How do we do this, that, or third? We need to have that resurgence of it and claiming it and letting our people know this is what's going on. But we cannot function out of fear. That doesn't serve us. We cannot function out of fear. Move and make your choices and be determined from knowledge. Okay? And when we move in knowledge, you're going to be right on point. If you get that calling, take your training, whatever company you want to be, a community, maternal health worker, all of that. We need all of that. Be realistic. Know your history, know your culture. Be invested in the people that you're working with. When I see my sister, I see myself. And when you truly work like that, it's going to be genuine and we're going to win. We're going to get the W. You know, it look bad sometimes, but you know, these are battles. These are skirmishes. But we're going to win the war.
Oh my gosh. Girl, you just been in church for this entire time. We've been in church. You hear me? I just feel like, I'm like this. I love everything you said. I love everything you shared. I appreciate I was seriously like, okay. I was so cool, calm, collected. And then you started talking and I've been like this. I try to be real. You got me out of my, I try to be real professional and like, hello. Girl, you don't pull me out. Listen, honey. Because I have enjoyed so much speaking with you and everything. It's like a history before we even got to herbalism, you gave a history lesson. And that's that everything you said at the end, what you were talking about at the end, when you were talking about the fact that, these are dire times. I tell people all the time, this is a state of emergency. So all of these different kinds of, you can't do this. You have to call it a this. Okay, how about we have a lot of work to do? And ever since we've integrated, our birth rates and stuff have been declining. How about this has never been a friendly situation for us?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we have a lot of ground to cover. So if you have a great idea and you want to call it this, call it.
Mm-hmm.
I said I'm just gonna call this Sankofa Birth Ambassadors. That feels right in my spirit.
Mm-hmm.
You got grandma saying, that feels right in my spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I love it. Tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Yes, if you want to be connected with what I'm doing with Grandma's Hands, my business is called Divine Birth Wisdom. Go to divinebirthwisdom.com. You can also catch me on Instagram at Divine Birth Wisdom. I also have a Facebook business page, Divine Birth Wisdom, and the same everywhere. If you are looking to see what I'm doing on a nonprofit level locally here in Southwest Louisiana, that's communitybirthcompanion.org. And I'm so happy. Thank you, Dr. Andrea, for having me here and just allowing me to share. I love it when I'm talking with my people and I can be open and free and just lay it all out there.
Exactly.
I really enjoyed this time. Thank you.
Thank you for spending so much time with me and the people that are going to take time and really listen to this, because what you have shared is, once again, I always say, it's a part of us remembering. It's a part of us putting it back together again. And we have to know more about the culture, about this rich culture that we created here away from Africa when we were brought here, that we maintained and sustained ourselves with for hundreds of years. You do that like no one else does. And I appreciate everything about you. I appreciate everything you are. And I thank you for spending time with me, Dr. Doula, and everybody else. Y'all make sure y'all reach out to her. I know many people who've taken our course, and it's phenomenal. So if this is a thing that you really want to do, make sure you reach out to Divine and get that knowledge. Start piecing it back together again. Speak to your elders so that we can really, really, really reclaim our birthrights. Thanks for being with me. See you guys next time.